I'm Jess Burns with headlines for FSRN. Thousands protested in Jordan today after King Abdullah dissolved the parliament, calling for new elections by the end of the year. The demonstrations are reportedly the largest in the country since anti-government protests swept the region in 2011. Today's 15,000-person protest was called by the Muslim Brotherhood. Video from the AP shows thousands of men holding banners and chanting in the capital Amman. They called for democratic reforms, an independent judiciary, and an end to government corruption. A demonstration in support of the government was canceled at the last minute. The Canadian federal prison system is getting rid of all non-Christian prison chaplains. Prisoners of all faiths will now have to go to Christian chaplains for counsel. Sikh prison chaplain Hakarat Singh spoke to the CBC.
How can a Christian chaplain can provide spirituality to the Sikh faith? Because they don't have those kind of expertise.
The government says it won't pick and choose which religions get, quote, preferential status through government funding. But critics say that's exactly what they're doing and only keeping Christian chaplains. Los Angeles Police Chief Charlie Beck is proposing a change in LAPD policy where police would no longer hand over undocumented immigrants accused of committing low-level crimes to the federal government. Under the federal Secure Communities program, local police forces are required, upon request, to hold undocumented immigrants for federal processing. Chief Beck said the change was about building trust with the immigrant community in the city.
I think that most people, if you have a discussion with them, don't believe that families that exist here in Los Angeles should be torn apart because an individual gets arrested for a very petty crime, an individual that doesn't have a criminal record, an individual that's not a gang member. I don't think that people believe that.
Beck said about 400 of 3,400 federally requested deportation holds in 2011 would not happen under the policy change, but immigrants who have a violent criminal past, even if the current arrest is for a minor offense, would still be handed over. The U.S. war in Afghanistan is the longest war in U.S. history. The Obama administration has promised to withdraw troops from the country by 2014, but this has not quelled anti-war activists in the U.S. and abroad. Demonstrations are being planned in at least 20 cities throughout the world to mark the 11th anniversary of the war. FSRN's Mark Taylor-Canfield has a preview of this weekend's events from Seattle.
The United National Anti-War Coalition says protests will be held across the U.S. with solidarity rallies in Canada, Pakistan, Iran, and the U.K. Today, members of the Iranian student movement have scheduled anti-Afghanistan war protests in Tehran after the traditional Friday prayers. On Sunday, demonstrators will gather in London at Trafalgar Square to read the names of people who've been killed in Afghanistan, both civilians and soldiers. The Congressional Research Service reports there were nearly 20,000 Afghan security and civilian casualties from 2007 through the first half of this year. Counts vary, but thousands more are reported to have died during the first 6 years of the war. The website iCasualties.org puts the number of coalition deaths at 3,197, with the U.S. and Britain experiencing the greatest losses. Demonstrations coinciding with this weekend's anniversary have also been organized in several major U.S. cities like New York, Philadelphia, Chicago, and San Francisco. Activists in smaller cities like Mankato, Minnesota, Hilton Head, South Carolina, and Tulsa, Oklahoma have announced gatherings. Here in Seattle, 3 days of events are planned to coincide with Occupy Seattle's one-year anniversary and Columbus Day protests. Anti-war activists will be picketing a military recruiting center and holding rallies and marches at Westlake Park. Mark Taylor-Canfield, Free Speech Radio News, Seattle.
And finally, in one of the most unique political attacks in a long while, the Republican Party in Maine has sent out mailers slamming Democratic State Senate candidate Colleen Lakowitz for playing World of Warcraft, a popular online fantasy role-playing game, and blogging about her character stabbing things. Her avatar in the game is an orc rogue assassin named Santiago. The Democratic Party is trying to leverage the attacks into support from the gaming community. The so-called Friends of Santiago have launched a donation site asking people to, quote, support a gamer who's under attack. Lackowitz is trying to unseat the incumbent Republican in a state Senate race that's expected to be close. And that's headlines for FSRN. From Eugene, Oregon, I'm Jess Burns.